Good evening. We are in front of Tom's restaurant. There's a empty second floor apartment above it. And across kitty corner there is an empty ground level store with the second floor empty and a third floor empty. And there's a Wi-Fi kiosk here. And the one thing that I would talk about, I don't feel super comfortable sharing with the internet for some reason. So what should we talk about? Well, what I was thinking about doing on this live stream, was to play the phone like a harmonica because of loneliness, right? Although expressing loneliness on the internet comes across as a little disingenuous because the internet feels like company. In 1929, Francis E. Coffey received the patent for the vending cart, the basis for the modern hot dog stand. We have a Wi-Fi kiosk, a Wi-Fi, not a kiosk, Wi-Fi cliff. Check it out. What does yours look like? Is it the same as this one? I imagine that the reason why this second floor apartment is empty is because we haven't developed a culture where we have a way of interacting between the haves and the have-nots other than fear. And rhetorically, how can you be afraid of someone as a strange weirdo outside when there's it just got really loud and it's creepy. It got it's just how can you look outside of your window and go, that is a creepy, strange, poor person that is threatening and scary, when there's free Wi-Fi everywhere and everyone has a cell phone and good evening. But even while I'm sitting here wondering why some people are like sort of looking like they're scared, it's like New York has always been this sort of economically shocking. Yeah, man. Ooh, everything's so loud all of a sudden. I think that the Broadway is gonna turn into a industrial highway because I'm speaking, and I don't want to shout. So I think Broadway might turn into an industrial highway. It was so quiet. You know that if I had the idea to go live, it was because it was so quiet and lonely, and now all of a sudden it's loud. And check out these rats. The rats are like almost directly under me. There's rat holes underneath me, but you know. We'll wait until the shouting that isn't shouting. We'll wait until the street gets a little quieter. So, believability. What's believable? Uh, Random. Random would be nice. Not pointed or associated. I sure am something with this being your pet poor person. I feel like a pet. Or like Samson underneath the Babylon place in the story where he's like got his hair cut and he's grinding the grain underneath Babylon. There are hills all around. There's definitely inclined ground. Maybe while I'm talking to you about how I feel, or while I'm talking to you about Tom's Restaurant from Seinfeld, maybe the rats will squeak, and it'll show up on the recording, and you can listen to it. There's also I didn't notice because it was blacked out with paint, but there's a couple of restaurants down. There's what looks like a closed off, no longer in business storefront. There's so many no longer in business. I don't know why I don't know why I'm not afraid of the police cars. I think 4 police cars I just saw. Oh, welcome back to loneliness now that the adrenaline has subsided. Man. Oren Ishii from Kilbo. There's from Oren Ishii from Kilbo. There's a place called Oren's Daily Roast Coffees and Teas. I like tea. I like coffee sometimes. I almost always like tea. I sometimes like coffee. And it's got a little bench in front of it that was I don't know if the bench is nailed down. Do you remember in the 80s and early 90s when everything had to be nailed down or else you wouldn't see it again? It's not like that anymore. Everywhere. I don't know. So, on the topic of loneliness, or on the topic of my specific loneliness these days, or on the topic of my specific loneliness right now, or on the topic of the prospect of feeling encouragement, companionship, fellowship. Fellowship's a nice word. Man, how do I don't really think about it, actually. Ever since I took the medication at the hospital and I started to have a much more direct, manifestation, law of attraction, faith moving mountains, little faith moving big mountains, big faith moving big faith, maybe aligning probabilities for, oh, it's funny that you should mention that because I was just thinking about that sort of thing. What would it even be like to think about the future and go, oh, I'm going to receive community and fellowship and an opportunity for receiving encouragement, an opportunity for encouragement. When I was in Union Square hanging out with people all the time, one of the things I tried not to focus on too much was the one of the things I try not to focus on too much.
In that case, in the back half of the course, if you want to go,
was when quiet people would look at me like I surprised them. Sometimes I would say, well, oh, doesn't everybody know about this? Or isn't the normal way of doing things like this? And sometimes when I would express that, I would get a laugh, a chuckle that had sort of a tinge of bitterness to it or a tinge of arrogance to it. And I would see this, and I would try not to think about it too much, because I knew that, on the internet there's this idea of lurk more, don't talk too much about yourself, or, God, I don't like saying don't talk too much about yourself. I tried not to think about conniving, creepy people. Because the accusation of creepy is often leveled at people who are not quiet or low to the ground at all. I remember I was walking down the street and I saw some beautiful girl and I was like, hey, wow, you're beautiful. And she's like, oh, you're creepy. And I was like, creepy means low to the ground and quiet. I'm loud and far away. I didn't even approach you at all. And I said that out loud. End of conversation. Not really a conversation. Anyway. Actually, these days, after Andrew Yang said do the math and proposed the idea that we have universal basic income now that we can afford universal basic income 4 years ago before COVID, I've been sort of adding things up, and the idea of loneliness doesn't seem to add up with 7.7 plus billion people on the planet Earth. So, do the math, right? Like, how special am I supposed to believe myself to be? Some guy just walked by with a face that looked like a Japanese war mask, permanently on his face, carrying 2 bottles of olive oil. Ugh. You know that Bible verse? What's that Bible verse? Oh, hey, DT. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I just had to put on my helmet because, my loneliness was attacked by not by a person, but like the reality sort of like attacked my loneliness where I'm speaking, and, eye contact was an opportunity for violence. Because I don't have a sword, you know what I mean? Could you imagine if I had like a ray gun, like Marvin the Martian, where somebody went up to my face and says, and I went, oh yeah, pew! I don't often, but every now and then when I'm doing public speaking, I kind of loudly say out loud, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that when the bodies ask me to end the threat that they are offering, that I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I was on 34th Street and 8th Avenue by the McDonald's that's kitty corner from the big postal service. And long story short, this old man said, "The next time I see you, I'm gonna kill you." And I was like, I can't live like that. How am I supposed to? I can't live like that. How am I supposed to live like that? Wondering when you're gonna see me and murder me? And I did the math. I was thinking about it. What does that mean? The next time I see you, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, old man, you're asking me to murder you now. And it was days later when I was thinking about it. I was like, oh. And then, days and days of me thinking about it, and I was like, I have my own feelings about, feeling threatened, but when that's done, what I really am feeling is what I feel so often, is sorrow, deep, like, powerful sorrow that I can't do that for you, Oh, jeez, guy. And this monster mask face character just walked by like he's angry that I'm using a cell phone to live stream. Carrying 2 bottles of olive oil. Down the street. I've tried that. I've tried, drinking a lot of olive oil after I do my purge and my cleanse. Didn't really work. Maybe don't take the ancient religious book specifically written for the context that it was written in a desert 2,000 years ago. Man, he had... The way that it physically makes the human body feel, to see a human body with nothing behind I wonder if I would feel differently if I had, in real life disintegrator pistol. Because when I see a human body and then it's like eye contact, behind the eye contact is like, I'm gonna hurt you if you keep looking at me. I'm staring in your eyes. Are staring at me. I'm gonna hurt you. Like, I wonder if I would feel the kind of like physical insult to the value of human life if I had a pistol that disintegrated a body. Not just ended a life, because ending a human life, I mean, you can do that with like a stick, but like not only ending a human life, but like conveniently, I don't have to think like, oh, what's gonna happen? People, bodies, oh. It's not like it used to be, like, it's not like it used to be where I would go, oh, what did I do? Or, you don't understand me. Now it's like, I don't do that sort of thing. I have years and years of going into the emotional manipulation of, Cillian Murphy. No. Going into the emotional manipulation of, like, just 1 second, there's another kind of, oh no. Boop beep boop, boop beep boop, boop, boop beep boop, boop beep boop boop, boop beep boop boop, boop beep boop boop, boop boop, boop beep boop boop. Anyway, so I've had decades of like getting distracted, feeling guilty, crying, suffering emotionally, all so that it could come back to the memory of like stacks and stacks of experiences, the kind of person that I've been for others. Like, oh yeah, I'm kind, I'm patient. Oh yeah, me, the real me, not the bad guy in your stupid story, but like the real me that's like available for humans' interactions. I don't know. Is it almost the witching hour? It's only 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not even the witching hour. Anyway. So I'm reminded of this children's movie called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is about the end of food scarcity all over the planet Earth. It's a children's movie. It's a children's movie about no one being hungry ever, no one having to feel super scared because they don't know how they're going to eat ever again. And the reason why I'm thinking about that is because of poverty and ghetto-ness here at 112th Street, something like 20 feet away from the very idea of American middle-class life. Seinfeld. And the future, even better than even more not poor, even more abundant than Seinfeld, middle class life. Wi-Fi everywhere, free electricity. I mean, I guess I could bring you on camera if you like. Okay, no problem. So, one would think after COVID of like a one would think after COVID like zombies and like an undead world, but the idea of New York City being like a scary place is as old as the idea of Hell's Kitchen. I wonder how I'm going to feel in my stomach right now after I drink that water. New York City has a lot of history of people living in this city at the same time, close together, but living very, very different lives. I don't know if the movie Troll was specifically in New York City. You know what movie was specifically in New York City, I think? Cat's Eye. The movie Cat's Eye, where, you know, the stray cat goes all over the different places, and part of the movie has a little troll that moves in and out of the walls, and then part of the movie has some guy with like a torture chamber with the cat getting electrocuted. Sort of like this idea of like all the different types of New York. Oh, let me show you one more time. So there's the empty second floor apartment. I've been noticing specifically empty second floor apartments because I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it noticing entire buildings being empty. Like that building. Like that's just seeing it. I don't know if you would call it noticing. Kind of hard to miss, quote unquote. I mean, the city is so clearly unrented and empty that it makes me it makes me wonder how much of the city has always been empty. Not because the idea is like people go to work, so the buildings are empty. Okay. But you go around the office buildings are empty or look empty, a lot of them, after COVID. And if the office buildings are empty and the apartments are empty and the storefronts are empty and the, you know, it kind of goes, well, okay, how much, if the whole city, you know, how much of the city has always been filled only with emotion, or, I'm sorry, how much of the city has only been filled with your imagination the whole time? I remember when I was in Seattle, and there were so many buildings under construction, they had these like cranes, and they were moving chunks of building around, and I was so medicated that I'm like looking at the move around. I'm in Seattle and I'm looking at the move around chunks of buildings, and I was like, you know, they could be moving the buildings up or moving the buildings down. They could be moving the buildings around. I wouldn't know. What am I going to sit here and stare until I find out if they're moving the buildings around or if they're just moving? I was like, I don't know if the buildings are full or empty. They don't let me up there, so how would I know? And then once you start thinking about how much of the city has always been filled with your imagination, then you go, well, how much of my idea of where I fit has just been like in a story that it was, imagination. Like, I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time outside. Imagine people that don't spend any time at all outside. I spent a lot of time at Union Square. Who knows what is a lot, right? Who knows comparatively? I spent some time hanging out in parks and meeting people outside. Even in my adulthood, as children, some people are like little rascals. They're outside. They meet people. They hang out outside all the time. Some people don't. Some people stay inside all day. They live their whole life in a book, with their nose in a book, studying the book, and then they go to the workplace and they go, oh, the book, Who knows? And then you look at other people, you think, well, what's their life about? Is their life experience, or is their life a book? I wonder if every time I ask a question, if the traffic is going to go, how much is the traffic going to go loud noises every time I ask a question rhetorically? I would go down to 100 Center Street and live across the street from the poor people. I would go down to 100 Center Street and live across the street from the poor people jails, and live across the street from the poor people court. But it's already Chinatown. I wonder if before the Chinese, with their reputation of staying to themselves and studying very much, or I wonder if before the Chinese lived behind the courthouses, I wonder if it was the Puerto Ricans. That lived behind the courthouses. And the reason why I call it the poor people jails and the poor people courthouse is because, listen, if you have a problem with your landlord, or if you have a problem with anybody that isn't like a domestic disturbance in a impoverished neighborhood, you call 911, you're like, hey, I have a problem with this business. Do you think they're going to run down to the business and arrest the guy? I'd like to see that television show. I'd like to see that NBC sitcom where somebody picks up the phone and go, hey, I was at a store and I purchased an item, and the item was empty, the box was empty, and or something, some crime that is not a domestic disturbance. And anyway, long story short, the court and the jail for the poor people on my timeline in the stories that I've heard, and in the accounts that I have been given, poor people jail, poor people court, one thing. Rich people jail, rich people court, different thing. If you've had different experiences, please share broadcast. Let's see if we can. Okay, can't bring that person on. Okay. The idea of poverty, the idea of homelessness, from the 80s to now. Free internet, free electricity. It ain't going anywhere. One homeless guy might break that television screen. And maybe for some strange coincidence, the broken TV screen might also be paired with a broken cliff. But there's another Wi-Fi right across the street. Look. So Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. There's a sequel. There's two of them. I didn't watch the movie. I'm not really into DreamWorks films. They're a little too DreamWorks films are a little too stylized for me, for what I like in 3D film. You know what I've been thinking about? I have been thinking about CGI 3D films, but in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that has been mostly live action. That'd be pretty cool, like a movie, like a Marvel movie, but instead of live action, CGI, like almost like Pixar, or what was a live action movie? What was a live action movie from? Wait, what was a almost photorealistic computer animated film? Give me a second to remember. Something like semi-grown up. The first big one was Final Fantasy Spirits Within. That was the first, like, wow, looks like a movie in real life, but it was computer generated. And then I can't remember anything else after that. Right now. Hello, facial expression. I wonder what people like. I don't know what to think is behind people's expressions to be anymore. I've been so, sleeping outside and being socially ostracized. It's like I don't what. Man, it's been so long since I've had friends. Oh my goodness, I don't know what people are trying to communicate with their facial expressions. The culture right now is like, don't be prejudiced. So much that, like, I don't know what to think when I see a person's presentation. Like, Asian man, big mustache, hat, 1 o'clock in the morning, short sleeves. I don't know. I'm not prejudiced. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what culture you're coming from. When they educate you so much that you don't know anything. I try not to assume that the bodies are individuals. If they don't present as individuals, if they don't express themselves as individuals, I don't know. Social graces, man. How many times have I been called rude just because I was way into already trying to be free, honest. A couple of days ago, or yesterday, I told some woman to social distance, and she called someone on me, and I recorded it and I uploaded it to YouTube, but it's not public anymore because one of the Parks Department people, their face was like permanently in the expression of, like all the time. One way to look like this all the time is if you have monosyphilis. That's the baby without the brain, or the baby with the fetus without the brain that's born with the eyes bugged out. Or there's a lot of different kinds of monopsyphily. Another way to look like that is if it's a corpse, a waterlogged corpse. So while the Parks Department officer was surrounding me and intimidating me, they also looked like their face was going to explode. And I was recording it, and I was trying to release anything that was stressing me out. So as I was recording them, I was like, "Oh, she's so ugly." We all have different deformities. I don't know if you know this, but everyone has some form of deformity. Everybody. 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 Everybody has some form of deformity where a prince and a princess that were too closely related had a child, and then the child was deformed, and then the parents made sure that their deformed child was able to get married and have another kid, and then they had more kids, and then that deformity became a nationality. I'm sorry if you didn't know this, but everyone is deformed. Everybody. Everybody. Everybody's deformed. Everybody. Ugh. Anyway, the point was that the social instructions that were given me, social distancing, that I asked for social distance, and then the person that I asked for social distance called a wellness check on me. I was like, oh, so it's official that you literally have nothing to complain about. There's no question, it's not a mystery, that it's literally, man, I've said this story before, but I was an adult living with my father and stepmother, and my stepmother had complained about me, or my parents had yelled at me for my behavior or something, and I white-knuckled it. I made sure that I was paying attention to everything I was doing, and I made sure that I remembered how every single thing that happened made me feel, and I made sure that I paid attention to how those feelings affected my thinking and how that thinking affected my actions. Tracing cause and effect. And within 48 hours from trigger to event, I traced something that upset my stepmother back to something that she had done to me. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a closed system. She did something, it knocked me for a loop. I said, hey, this is knocking me for a loop, and she said, well, I'm in charge, so I could do whatever I want, and you're going to have to just go spinning out of control because I could do whatever I want. And I went spinning out of control and did everything I could to keep myself under control, and I kept myself under control, and then it came out in a way that I didn't anticipate, and then it came back out on her, and she goes, you did something, and I was like, oh, well, it's the thing that you did back to you. That's one of those things that has to do with identity, but not in the identity politics sort of way. That's one of the things that has to do with like how you feel about yourself. It's like, are you a bad person? Are you a screw up? No, you're just reeling. You're just spinning because you get hit. And I don't know if you notice, kind of like a sumo wrestling. You know, someone pushes you and you move or don't move. You know. In case that you were thinking that this idea was something that we don't really think about, or if just in case you were thinking that this idea is brand new and no one's come up with it, of course people have come up with it, and there is this game where two people kind of specifically play a game where it's not complicated at all. It's not like baseball where there's all these rules. It's not like football where there's a little bit less rules. It's just two people pushing each other around. Sumo wrestling. And the name of the name of this wrestling match, called sumo wrestling, is really not complicated. It's just called sumo wrestling, where it's not complicated at all, and you don't make it more complicated. It's not complicated, and you don't make it more complicated. Sumo wrestling. Poverty, poverty. The song OPP, right? Harmony, harmony. One of the things that upsets me about myself is that one of the things that used to upset me about myself, I don't know if it still upsets me about myself. Man, protect your heart because it is the wellspring of your life. Okay, I don't know. I don't want to share it. I'm going to share it. One of the things that upsets me about myself in the topic of going to work and what is value and what does it mean to work and where, in what reality that you live in and whatever. In the West Village, there is some tile work that was done on public property, that someone took broken pieces of tile and broken pieces of pottery, and they put concrete and they put tile all around the base of the New York City light, you know. You go to the Village and you see that some of these public New York City light fixtures. In fact, let me show you one of them right now. So in the West Village, some of these things have tiles, like spackled or concrete, and it's kind of beautiful that it doesn't look like the city hired anybody to do that. That somebody just decided to do that. And you kind of wonder, oh, well, why did they do that? Did they do that because they were inspired to take broken pieces of pottery from their pottery workshop and, like, from richness, spread more richness? Or did they find thrown away pieces of pottery and they were homeless and they said, oh, well, nobody will hire me, so I'll work even though nobody's hiring me? What inspired it? And well, how did they get away with it? Is it considered graffiti? Low though I value through the paddock of left. Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. I've been looking at this sticker for a while now. Let's see what this sticker is. It is a little birdie wizard. And it's a sticker. Cool. Cool. You want to hear something sad? I'll tell you something sad. So, I had a friend who was a friend of mine. I had a friend. And for about a year and a half, I would think about them, and I would imagine having a conversation with them. And in my imagination, there was imaginary responses back. Not really that much responses, but I would kind of like think about them and what they would say. And I collected stickers from graffiti stickers. I would peel the graffiti sticker off while thinking about my friend. Because the place where I started peeling the stickers off was the neighborhood where they lived. And I thought, oh, that's a cool sticker. I'd like to show that to my friend. And I filled up 2 books with stickers that I found, graffiti stickers, and I peeled them off and I filled them up with this book, thinking that I had a friend. And I was thinking that one day that I would reconnect with them or circle around back to hanging out with them. I was like, oh, the next time I hang out with this friend, I'll give them the book with all these stickers that I found while thinking about them. And I don't do that much anymore because I'm not very good at navigating the social. So I'm sorry, friend. They have a song, this former friend, possibly still my friend, I don't know, where they sing, "Where is my friend? Where is my friend?" Hello. One of the reasons why I wear a helmet, I guess, is so that if you feel like you need to bop me on the head, you can. And it won't be that bad. One of the reasons why I wear a helmet is because it feels good to have a hat, and I don't. It feels good to have a hat, and I don't have a good. It feels good to have it feels good to have a hat, and I don't have a good track record of keeping hats. But this hat has a little strap, so when I'm not wearing it, I can strap it to my bag. So it's a little bit harder to lose. That person was very close. They walked by very close to me. You know, these days, that sort of picture, you don't need to paint it. Supposedly, computers can do that. They could take a picture and turn it into that sometimes. I don't know. See that? You think that's a person? It might be a person. It looks like it looks like it is a person, actually. That looks real. That looks like it was done by hand, but who knows, right? Might be a Photoshop filter. This is journaling. This is like journaling. I'm just talking because if I wasn't talking, I'd be thinking or feeling. And if I was just talking and thinking and feeling, I would probably feel lonely or think, I don't know. No other place is so blatant and so secret. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if you can see that. Alright. I guess one of the benefits of the life that I've lived is that I'm sort of used to people looking at me like I'm doing something stupid. You know, I didn't think that I was retarded, but then I remembered that something really disgusting that I did when I was very little in school, in class, in front of a bunch of people. I didn't think people were looking at me. I guess I was retarded. Something that I did while in front of the class with, But the other thing is like, now that I've seen how easy it is to drug me, who knows what I was on when that happened, right? Like somebody blew some, who knows? The mercy of our protectors. Our guardian angels. Oh, guardian angels, what a cool idea. That, you know, Europe has this idea that we all have specific angels. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? When I think about angels, I think of like only 7 angels in all of existence. I don't think of like thousands and thousands of angels. I think of like Michael, Gabriel, and like, I don't know who else. Man, look at, let me see if I can show you this. Look at this. Look at this empty building, man. It's just empty, 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 empty. Empty, 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 empty. Imagine that times 100,000, maybe? Imagine that times 100,000. Maybe less. Imagine that times 20,000. That's what I've seen all around the city. Just for me to be out on the sidewalk like New York is like Jerusalem in the Bible, where Jerusalem was, where the Holy Land was under the control of a foreign army, and that the characters in the New Testament thought that Jesus was going to have a military revolution. They teach us in church that Jesus on Palm Sunday entered Jerusalem to a big celebration, but that when he was betrayed by Judas, and then a big crowd was saying to crucify Jesus and not Bar Jesus, that the reason why that is because they expected him to have like an armed liberation of the Holy Land from the Roman centurions. And now I'm in New York City, and it's like, I mean, if New York doesn't own itself, who owns New York? You know, is it who owns New York? Or if America doesn't own, if Americans don't own all of these unoccupied spaces, who does? There are still residential buildings that appear to have residents, but there are so many visibly unoccupied spaces that now the idea that a space has people in it just because it looks like it has people, it's like, well, I mean, you look at a building and then you see like 2 or 3 floors out of 10 floors where it's just row after row after row of apartments with the lights on. You don't see any drapes, any blinds. And you're like, okay, well, those are empty. And then you look at the other buildings and they have drapes and they have blinds and maybe they're furnished. And you go, are those full? I don't know if they're full. I mean, you never would have thought that this much of the city would be visibly empty. You never would have thought that this much of the city would be visibly empty. But now that this much of the city is visibly empty, one wonders how much of the city is invisibly empty. You got the bodies on the ground, but I don't know. Favorite city in the world is New York. Sure, it's dirty, but like a beautiful lady smoking a cigar. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers told the world that Michelle Obama was a transvestite, and then she died. What a way to go. I don't feel like believing that Michelle Obama is a transvestite. No. But I challenge you to find a more memorable quote from Joan Rivers in the last 5 years of her life. I just saw Joan Rivers. What do you want to trigger something that you don't like? I saw a Joan Rivers quote. I quoted it. I remember that she died, and I said, this is the last thing that she did. Stop poking yourself in the face. That I have to imagine that someone's upset now. Ugh. We just went through the whole rigmarole of explaining how Myra bothered me. Not just bothered me, but unbalanced me, you know, not just like a little bit of a poke, but like I'm going to push you real, real hard and make you feel real, real bad, trauma. And then traumatized me and then said, too bad, you deal with it. And then how I held it, I I did deal with it, and then it came out and it bothered her, and I was like, oh, I like, oh, what happened? Oh, that was yesterday. It bothered me. There are times when I get manipulated into being heroic. Like I was thinking just now, I'm thinking about Occupy Wall Street, running around doing triage on all the different things that were falling apart there. So much so that when a couple of years had passed and someone said, oh, don't you think it's funny that this big famous thing that everyone was talking about, Occupy Wall Street, don't you think it's funny that it's like nothing, like no one even thinks about or talks about Occupy Wall Street anymore? I was like, maybe, but not really, because even when we were down at Occupy Wall Street, it was like a sandcastle that you had to rebuild every time the tide went in or out. You know, you had every time the tide came up, and you know, every day it was falling apart, and every day we had to rebuild it. So yes and no. And now Elon Musk keeps wearing the Occupy Mars shirt. He wore it at Joe Rogan. He wore it at the last interview I saw when he was at the SpaceX base in Texas. I'm like, hey, he's wearing Occupy Mars again, the t-shirt. You know, the idea of like, you want to be socially active? You want to occupy Wall Street? Be socially active and occupy Mars. That's where to make the difference. Make the difference in, you know, the great challenge, you know, going to the moon. The great challenge, going to Mars. The great challenge of going to Mars and the moon, going into space, you know, the future, the ideas of the future, Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi everywhere, free electricity for your phone. Free food in a movie called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Yeah, it's a movie that children watch. I was recently watching this HBO show called Hacks. And I was hesitant to watch it because it's mostly about female characters and female comedians, and I was hesitant to watch it because the name of the show is not good, not creative, not original, not dynamic stand-up comedians. The name of the show is People Who Copy Other People's Stand-Up Comedy Routine. Hacks! So I was like, you know, let me not poke myself in the eye. Let me not watch something that I'm not going to like. But there was, you know, I watched a bunch of other shows, and I was like, I just got finished watching Julia on HBO Max. Julia was really good, female main character. Julia was as a show, I really enjoyed it. Or I enjoyed it much more than I expected to. Surprisingly, even though I should have expected to enjoy it, because I enjoyed The Amazing Ms. Maisel. So I watched Julia, then after I watched Julia, I was like, okay, let me check out this show called Hacks. And in the show called Hacks, why did I bring this up? Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Oh, family. So in the show, let's go so in the show Hacks, this 20-something-year-old calls up their mom, and the mother says, come back home, we'll take you to the pediatrician. And the the mom in the show was like a maniac, sort of like an incredibly worrisome maniac. And I was like, oh, hey, this is not unique to me. Wow. Wow. It's like a common experience. Wow. No temptation has overcome you except that which is common to man. And that God will not tempt you beyond your ability to endure, but that He will create, that God will create Himself a way out for you. I think the thing that verse and that scene from that show has in common is that the idea that, you're not unique. You're not that you're not unique, but that you're not a freak, or that you're not, your life experiences are relatable to the human race around you. It's a nice idea. It's especially a nice idea to think about while standing alone at West 112th Street in Broadway at 1:30ish in the morning. Supposedly not everybody can do this. Supposedly what I'm doing right now is work. Supposedly what I'm doing right now takes skill. But if you feel like making a skilled laborer feel worthless, you could call this drowning on and on. So I feel like wrapping it up there. I just saw someone's body language express that they were prepared to go off on their own, and I also, before I saw the body language, as I was watching the body language, sort of was preparing also to go off on my own. So I don't know, I'm thinking about this moment. Let's, you know what, I'll zoom. We'll zoom. This is what we'll end on.